In this lecture, we are going to learn about meshing process in ANSYS. In order to demonstrate the global meshing settings inside ANSYS Workbench, I have opened ANSYS Workbench. Right now, I am going to Component Systems and drag and drop this mesh component system onto the project schematic. Once I take the mesh system, now I need to right click on the geometry cell and go to import geometry. I have opened it, and once I open, I can just double click on this mesh cell so that ANSYS mechanical module will open. And here is our geometry. Then we are going to apply some global mesh controls, and we are going to see what are those global mesh control. You can see here is a body with some straight faces, straight edges, circular edges with holes, and other sorts of things. So as I told you, we have an automatic measure that is inbuilt into ANSYS Mechanical, which is very efficient in generating meshes. If the body is very simple, the automatic measure is going to very accurately generate the mesh. But if the complexity of the geometry increases, then global mesh measure can be used to create an initial mesh. And from that initial mesh, we are going to use some localized control to generate more efficient mesh. For now, what we are going to do is we are going to go to this mesh group. Once we go to mesh group, so here the first and foremost option is known as the physics of preference option. So based upon the type of analysis you are going to perform, you will select these preferences. For now, select the physics preference to mechanical. There are few other options that we will see later. What I am going to do is I am going to just right click, say generate mesh. So once I generate the mesh, now if I select physics preference as CFD and generate mesh, now you can see that CFD needs more fine mesh in comparison to mechanical. The number of mesh elements has increased for CFD. As I go to statics, see here you will find total number of elements and nodes. Now change physics preference to mechanical and generate mesh. Now you will find that the number of nodes and elements has decreased. So the next option we are going to see is the relevance option. So relevance is nothing but you will be having a setting where you can control it from -100 to +100. So what happens if you set the relevance to -100, say which is the minimum value, I am going to generate the mesh once again. And once I generate the mesh, you can see the number of nodes and elements should be decreasing. You can clearly see from here the mesh density has decreased. See here the number of nodes have changed. What can I do if I just set the relevant setting to 100? So if I take it to a +100, what happens is it should increase the mesh density. So I am going to just right click on this and say generate mesh. Now I should be getting more number of nodes. So see here the mesh density has clearly increased. Now coming to the next one, you can go to the sizing group. In the sizing group, you have what is known as a relevance center. In this relevance center, you again have three settings: coarse, medium, and other one is a fine. If you want to generate the coarse mesh, you are going to put up coarse. Also, if you put relevance 100, this is the minimum coarse mesh that you can generate with these settings. So for example, if I change it to coarse, now what I am going to do is I am going to just right click, say generate. So once I say generate, see the number of nodes will be increasing, and I think the relevance is 100. So it will be increasing multiple times. If we are going to change it from coarse to fine, what happens? The mesh density has increased. So this is how you can change different settings if you want a coarse mesh. You can just go back and say coarse and you can regenerate the mesh. Then coming to the next option is nothing but the element size. So element size means you can give a default element size, and based upon the element size, automatic measure is going to generate a mesh. We will learn about this in our project. Now coming to the next option, we have what is known as a size function, and stop on the size function. We get more control over the global mesh settings. For example, let us say if we have selected this curvature setting, what happens at the curvatures? The body is having a lot of curvatures. At this particular curvatures, you will getting more finer mesh, or you will get more structured mesh. And if you select the proximity, for example, here I am going to serve the proximity, and see here I am going to show you at this particular edge. This particular circle and the edges are very much nearer to each other. So what happens in the default settings, I don't have any defined mesh here. But if I select the proximity and generate the mesh, see here without increasing the mesh density, here it has increased the mesh density. Likewise, if you put the curvature setting, you are going to get more finer mesh on the curve area. This particular proximity feature will be helpful. There are a lot of features very near to each other, and if you have a lot of curvatures on a body, you can use the curvature option, or otherwise you can add proximity and curvature, so that both of the settings can be applied to this particular body at the same time. So these are some of the global mesh settings you need to be knowing in order to create efficient measures for your simulations.